I were in your position, I would take with myself and hand over to someone else who is not compromised.
Thank you very much for supporting our channel. In today's views, my people, we will take a look at an interesting and exclusive interview done by Colin Bell of Portland Spice TV with former Finance Minister Dr. Omar Davies. So my people, just sit back and let us educate ourselves and inform ourselves with this information. So my people, if you are new here, welcome. Like, share and subscribe to the channel. Bless up yourself, Colin Bell on Portland Spice TV. Great interview.
I want to welcome to Portland Spice TV, Styles FM and Caribbean Radio. In my estimation, the best finance minister Jamaica has ever had. Dr. Omar Davies. Dr. Davies, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good to be on the program. My first time.
It's a pleasure to have you. You know, I don't know if you remember, I had interviewed you a long time ago when you were vying for leadership at the party.
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember. Yes, a long time.
That's a long time ago. Yeah, man. So we've been on it for a very long time. Dr. Davies, I want to thank you for your service to this country, this island of Jamaica. A lot of people don't realize that when you go into politics, it's a sacrifice. And when you were Minister of Finance, you never did get $22 million a year. Were you?
No, I've never earned that in my life.
And you never decided to take up a foreign job. Were you offered any foreign job?
Several times.
What?
Yes.
You were offered a foreign job by who, Dr. Davies?
The multilaterals, the different multilaterals.
So you're talking...
matter of fact, I recall when the deputy managing director of the IMF was retired. They had a function for him. And he said, boy, you don't understand why all this fuss about him, because the people who do real work and should get commendation. And he named me, he named Mandela's finance minister, Trevor Manuel, and so. That sort of offer is a standard practice they use, you know, because if they're able to tap into the best from the third world or the developing world, it gives them an edge, and you can't accuse them of at least they think you can accuse them of bias. But yes, I was offered opportunities, mostly I'm for the World Bank.
So you could have gone if you had wanted to.
Well, I did that. I returned to Jamaica as from Stanford University. I returned to Jamaica when I'd just been promoted, etc. The truth is, I don't regard it as a major thing. It was and I don't judge anybody else, but it's a personal choice, and I couldn't see myself raising my children in that society.
Dr. Davies, let's look at the release of the FINSAC archive. But before we look at the release, Dr. Davies, the banking sector, when the problem in the banking sector really started?
Well, I can't give you a definitive date, but the problem was that the practices were there, and let me just indicate that the granting of so many licenses brought people in who were not did not observe the basic rules of banking. And one of the things which we need to face honestly, how is it that none of the foreign controlled banks face the same problem? How is it that the credit unions all went through that same period without the collapse? And one reason is that there are clear rules governing the granting of assessment of loan application and the granting of loans.
Mhm.
So what when you ask when did it start? The trouble is that against the backdrop of shortage of foreign exchange, etc.
But those licenses that you mentioned that was granted, were they granted in the 80s?
To be truthful, some were granted then, but some were granted by before my time as Minister of Finance.
Right. So some was granted in the 80s and some in the 90s.
Yeah, right. And the difficulty is that persons were, I say, aware of these strange practices, but there was collaboration between some of these institutions to find ways of getting around the rules governing the financial sector. And that's one of the reasons which I have raised and I will raise again today the question as to why Minister Clark does not publish the forensic audits.
So those are some of the things that are okay. Those are some of the things. But how can you put forward the archives and you don't release the audits?
Well, that's one question. The question is who made the determination as to what should be kept back, and what were the reasons governing that decision.
Dr. Davies,
yes.
When you got in office, when you became finance minister, and the problem came to you, what was your first reaction and what were the options available to you?
Well, the reaction was to meet with the principals involved and to find out did they agree with the assessment which the Bank of Jamaica presented, and if so, what steps would they be taking? Mainly, the most important would be to bring additional capital into the institution. And by and large, the answers were not reassuring. In certain instances, there was defiance on the part of some of the institutions or the heads of the institutions. And at that stage, you recall that several of these heads were both CEO and chairman. And there's no more powerful job than the executive chairman, because you determine what goes to the board, and you as chairman, you'd have been instrumental in selecting the other board members. So it was like, I think they call themselves the Chairman's Club.
The Chairman's Club.
Yes, because these were and the names are all very familiar.
So were there no agency in place to oversee the regulation of these banks at the time?
Yes and no. The Bank of Jamaica was always there. The problem was that it was it had authority to deal with deposit taking institutions, but several of these entities were in groups of company. And for example, the building society at the Bank of Jamaica did not have authority over the building society.
Oh.
So what was done in several instances, and the audits would show that. That's why the audit would show is that you would move a bad loan granted by the bank into the building society, and then send it back as one which was, one which you could have on the books.
But that sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, it is. It's called evergreening and so on. And there are several instances of that, not only within a specific group of companies, but between institutions. And that's why I said that it is really a pity that Mr. Clark has decided to redact those findings, because those findings are not. No one could accuse the findings us of providing biased findings. These are findings carried out by internationally recognized institutions.
No, Dr. Davies, a lot of people sometimes blame you for FINSAC. The question I'm going to ask you now, had it not been FINSAC, because based on our understanding that the banks had problems, there were a run on the bank, people going for the money and couldn't get the cash. If not FINSAC, then what?
Well, it's one of those amazing developments, in the sense that FINSAC was created to bring order to the whole process of trying to clean up the situation. But because by then, all the owners and majority owners had taken flight, persons then saw FINSAC as the entity which they should who should bring them relief. And it's one of the trials of might, and I suspect it's inevitable. They felt that the government should be the one. If you take over the bank, then you are responsible for this. So there's one person in my whole period who came to me, and I could even call his name.
Please do.
Afterwards, there's a videographer by the name of Walton, and he come and said, "Boy, if it wasn't for you," because people forget all the persons whose savings were protected, all the persons who had insurance policies which were protected. All of these people were able to survive this turmoil simply because the government created FINSAC, and FINSAC assumed responsibility for these liabilities.
But Dr. Davies, the view out there is that FINSAC only destroy people. We have never heard about anybody who benefited from FINSAC, who FINSAC get back their money, who were able to continue because FINSAC came in, sold assets and give them back the money. We never hear about that.
Well, one interested. I was talking with former Prime Minister Patterson recently about that. He said this is normal. The right thing had to be done, but don't hold your breath. Nobody's gonna come and publicly acknowledge this. That's why I gave you Walton's name because he has come to me and said repeatedly. But it was that many persons have a simplistic view of what a bank does. They don't realize that a bank doesn't collect your money and lock it away, but it has to earn.
Right.
And to earn it, you have to lend it and so on. And if you make bad decisions in lending it, then there will be nothing earned to pay back the depositors or the investors. And therein is a problem. Now, I don't know whether these owners and managers hope that over time the bad investments would turn good. But the fact is that if you consistently risk people's savings in bad investments, then it won't be long before the whole thing blows up. And I challenge anybody. I remember going to Alcoa to meet with the workers. And since I was the first person, I went with Lambert Brown because he represented the workers at Hawthorne. And there was great hostility to me. And in a sense, after you get past the initial anger, you realize that it's a logical thing because nobody else had showed up to speak about the issue.
Right.
But all these workers at all different entities whose pension funds had been managed by insurance companies, etc. They had a pension only because of the intervention of FINSAC.
Dr. Davies, these chairmen and CEO and owners of these banks, why were they not taken to books, maybe charge or something for the wrongs that they did? Because nobody is looking at the owners and the managers and the chairman and the CEO of these banks. They seems to got off scotch-free.
Well, you are correct. But the reality is that these people have access to resources, and so they can hire the best defense, etc. But that's one of the reasons we went through a total revamping of the regulatory system. Because that's if there's anything good which came out, there's a revamping of the regulatory system, the creation of the FSC, the creation of the deposit insurance.
So those are institutions that you brought in.
Yes.
And I want to talk to you about those, Dr. Davies. But before I go there, one of my listeners, they are asking, most Jamaicans don't understand what FINSAC is. Please explain what is FINSAC.
Okay. Well, it mainly was, but FINSAC was an institution which was established to take control of all the impaired assets, the bad loans, etc. of those financial institutions which had been badly managed, and they replaced the impaired assets. Impaired assets mean worthless, with a government paper backed by the government of Jamaica, which then allowed the FINSAC to generate resources to pay back out depositors to stand in there with the insurance companies. That's what FINSAC was established for. But there are other things which it was charged with doing. One is to supervise the total overhaul of the supervision of the financial sector. But one of the things which you should note, is that you can put laws into place, but unless you're eternally vigilant. It is not difficult to see. I don't say it's possible to have anything as widespread as that which happened last time. But you can have instances, and here's one which shows you that unless you're vigilant and keep monitoring the activities of these institutions, it's easy to slip back into that period.
And very interesting.
And one of the reasons I think it's imperative that the forensic audits be published, so you can see what can happen if you are not eternally vigilant.
So you're calling for the audits to be also uploaded in the archives?
Yes, yeah, without doubt. And well, two things I'm calling for the explanation as to why it wasn't, because this was an integral part of the decision making. Those are so without doubt you have to call for that, but there has to be an explanation, an explicit statement. These are the reasons we didn't do this. So who are you protecting in that process?
Exactly, because if you want people to get a full understanding, why do you really redact anything? But Dr. Davies, the question is, after spending about $160 million of taxpayers' money, what are your views on the fact that there was no report?
Well, to say I'm disappointed, before the commission.
We lost you a while ago, Dr. Davies. Just repeat.
No, I'm naturally very disappointed, but not surprised.
Why are you not surprised?
The whole thing was conceived of and implemented, this commission of inquiry, for straight political gains. The selection of the chairman himself, who was the courts removed, was a bad debtor.
A bad debtor to Jamaican banks.
Yes.
So the chairman. We took it to court, you know. Yes, I remember.
And then he, what he allowed to happen, you had persons who had no involvement in the previous institution, no investments, no savings, who were allowed to cross-examine me, and he gave them free rein.
Mm-hmm.
So that you started off on that basis. Secondly, FINSAC was not allowed. FINSAC was not allowed legal representation.
No.
So people, no, it's I can't recall exactly.
But how does that work?
Huh?
How does that work? That FINSAC didn't have legal representation at the inquiry?
Yes, and I wrote on behalf of with the authority of then Prime Minister Simpson Miller. I wrote to this then Prime Minister. Sorry, with the permission of my leader, I wrote to then Prime Minister Bruce Golding and pointed out to him that this is unacceptable. And to give him credit, he took action, and FINSAC then was able to employ legal representation. Well, why is that important?
Yeah,
because a lot of the charges and claims which have been made went unchallenged, because someone in the crowd would get up and say, "I had Z million in the bank and FINSAC took it," and so, and there's nobody to say, give us more details or substantiate that claim.
Mm.
No, so there were enough examples which would tell you that sooner that there is no good which could come out of it. Even if you wanted a report which said the government was to be blamed, the structures did not allow for any thorough analysis to be carried out.
So it was just an exploration in futility.
No, not it, depending on your objective. It was simply to try to get as much out there in the public domain, suggesting malice, aforethought, etc. And that they succeeded in doing. But what struck me is that I do not believe that there was a clear sort of reporting system such that when people said what exactly is happening, people have forgotten, that former Minister Odisha once announced to the House that he would be handing the report to the Governor General within and gave a time frame.
But if he did that, Dr. Davis, that means that there must have been some interim report that maybe he would have seen to say that.
Oh, yeah, you need to ask him that rather than me. One of the things, I had deliberated because within our system, a commission of inquiry deserves to be treated in a particular way. Mm-hmm. And so I took a conscious decision not to do anything which would undermine that part of the institution. But the reality is that all the rules which ensure that there's an organized system to carry out these activities, all of these were violated. I mean, I consider there are several things, the way in which various persons were allowed to get up and cross-examine. Certainly in my case, that's one example. But I think even more important is that institutions, that the FINSAC wasn't able to defend itself against charges.
Dr. Davis, hindsight, they say, is 2020. Knowing everything that you know now and the position you were in then, would you do it again? Or would you do it a different way? FINSAC, or would you do it a different way?
The problems about a different way. The fact is that these bad investments meant that the savings and other assets of a lot of people was gone. And the real question is, which is what the multilaterals said, that these are hazards of a market economy. Mm-hmm. And so if they lose, they lose. Mm-hmm. The cabinet said that we couldn't do that, but to tell you the truth, we didn't know the full extent of the cost. So in a different setting, perhaps we should have offered to pay a percentage of your savings, etc., rather than full reimbursement.
So the government then reimbursed a lot of people money that they lost in the meltdown.
Not a lot, everybody.
But people don't talk about that, Dr. Davis.
But it's just because they accept that. In a sense, they just accept that there's nobody who had an account or had savings who was not reimbursed. But but I go further. Some of these depositors, you recall, we had been trying to strengthen the country's reputation in terms of the foreign exchange market, etc.
Mhm.
And there were thousands of persons who had responded in the diaspora who had responded and lodged their money in these accounts.
Right.
And one of the questions which we couldn't answer in advance is what would happen if these persons lost there? What would that do to the Jamaica's international reputation?
Dr. Davis, you mentioned that, and looking back at all of that, do you have any recollection of approximately how many persons got back their money that these banks made bad decision and lost the people's money?
Hundreds of thousands, because there was both deposits, investments, there's deposits, investments, and we put insurance policies in the same thing. I mean, the only reason we're able to deal with Mutual Life and Life of Jamaica was because we made good in terms of the assets of those institutions. So you're dealing. I would, at a rough thing, put it at more than 500,000
people who got back their, who FINSAC saved them, got back their money. But all we hear about these days is people committed suicide because they lost their houses, and we have never heard anybody talk about these people who got back their money because of what you and the administration then did.
Well, let me start by saying I regret there are some persons who you can't blame them who took their savings and placed it with entities. But and I regret those who had bad experiences. But at the same time, I'm not surprised that people didn't have them come forward. Except a man will come to your own corner and answer something. But in general, nobody's going to get that man do an interview or write a letter saying that
they were saved.
Yeah.
Let me just, Dr. Davis, to all who are just joining, because people continue to join, we are talking to Dr. Omar Davies, former finance minister, the man who sets up the FSC, who set up the insurance,
the deposit insurance.
The deposit insurance. Those are institutions that you put in place to protect Jamaicans investing in these banks after the meltdown.
Well, that's the only part of what we didn't know.
Tell us some more of what you did.
We placed responsibilities on the auditors. Mm-hmm. So at the moment you see something wrong, because there are auditors who are signing off on actions which were just not kosher. So the auditors were then given responsibility at the first sign of anything to bring this to the attention of the authorities. Board members were given additional responsibilities in that regard.
Yeah.
So when they're going to talk about the robust supervisory system, all of that came out of the posts, the ones we had dealt with the overall thing of settling depositors, etc. Mm-hmm. There was a whole lot of work which was done in that regard.
Dr. Davis, and I have seen a couple of people in the chat room pressing this issue that I'm going to ask you about now. SSL. Mm-hmm. Does SSL look like anything you saw back then?
I don't. Hold on.
We're talking to Dr. Omar Davies, former finance minister, and the man who...
Hello?
Yes, Dr. Davies, go ahead.
The truth is I know so little about SSL. I don't know who does. All I've heard. I've never seen any of the documentations, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of the it looks worrying because some of the people who were in FINSAC are back in that.
Hallelujah.
But what is important though is that whatever the investigations show, these should be published.
You think the FSC failed to pick up SSL? I mean, you basically brought the FSC into being, and they should be overseeing things like this SSL organization. You think they failed to pick up?
Again, I can't comment beyond the point that there seems to be a question, and I can't go beyond the fact that there's a question as to whether, at what stage did the FSC inform the minister that there was something wrong.
Mm-hmm. And you're aware that the minister couldn't find the letter till him find it in a FEMA cabinet?
I'm not, all I'm just, you know as much as I do, and I've deliberately not tried to probe in this.
And I'm not leaving FINSAC yet, Dr. Davies, but one more question as it relates to now. The Prime Minister in the report from the Integrity Commission, they spoke about a loan that the Prime Minister received from an entity, that the collaterals were not upfront and available at the time. Does that look like anything coming out of the 90s again?
Again, I don't know the details of what I've got with the Prime Minister and the Integrity Commission. But in terms of people getting loans, etc., without being properly collateralized, that's familiar.
That's familiar. Let's go back, though, Dr. Davies, down to FINSAC. And you said a lot of people were saved by FINSAC. Is it more?
You must say, I say.
A lot of people were saved.
Whenever you hear about this 40% of GDP, that's what those funds were used for.
To save people. The question I want to ask you, though, were more people benefit than those who were burnt?
Yes, but I wouldn't say I have never done the comparison in terms of actual value for money, but in terms of how much money. But yes, by far.
By far.
Because think of it, that every depositor in all those banks, NCB, wherever, everyone got back their money. Every life insurance policy holder
got back their money.
That policy was protected. Every pensioner whose funds were being managed by several of them life insurance firms managed their funds. Everyone got back their money.
Dr. Davies, is there anybody sitting in the Jamaican Parliament right now that was bailed out by FINSAC?
Well, I can't give you.
I'm not asking you for a name.
Let me tell you something. I have separated what I knew as a minister as opposed to what Omar Davies knows. And I don't want to answer that, but what I can tell you is that there are persons who have sat in Parliament who in a sense, have been involved in that meltdown.
Why are you
And,
trying to protect people, Dr. Davis, who is trying to tear your reputation? They are trying to tear your reputation apart, trying to trample upon you.
They have worked hard at it. They have worked hard at it.
But you continue to protect them.
Because all you're going to do is continue the same back to and fro. I mean, people just speak about my predecessor. He's just one. There are other persons who or in there is another former minister and MP who was part owner of a bank, which also had to be arrested.
Dr. Davis, you're a decent man.
Well, thank you.
Because some people throw them under the bus long time. And I have listened to you over the years trying to protect these people.
What is painful is that there are persons who know better, who have contributed through their silence to this whole confusion.
What did FINSAC cost Jamaica economically, Dr. Davis? You said
it's very hard to give a precise number on that. But and one of the dangers is that if you do that precise number, what you should also remember is what would have happened to Jamaica if all those savings, etc., had been wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the analysis which has to be done.
When you left as finance minister, Dr. Davis, what position was the Jamaican economy in?
Well, you know what is amazing is that the foreign exchange market was stable. The inflation was like about 5%. There were all set of positives. And one of the ironies is that the multilaterals praised our handling of the financial sector problems, crisis.
But this present Prime Minister is saying that you and the most honorable PJ destroyed the Jamaican economy in the 90s.
Yeah, yes. So, I assume that the population will understand his desperation in trying to regurgitate that, because he knows it's not true, and many of the perpetrators are people who are strong supporters of his party.
Mm-hmm. You brought the FSC in place after finding out the whole issue of the meltdown. Tell my listeners and viewers, what were the FSC put in place to do directly? What were some of their responsibilities?
Well, in a sense, the FSC was established to do for non-deposit taking institutions what the Bank of Jamaica was doing for deposit taking institutions. And so there was a separation of the activities, because one of the problems which limited the Bank of Jamaica ability to carry out its supervisory activities was the extent to which, if you had a group of companies, you could move funds around or appearance of moving funds around. Sometimes there are no real funds. And so the FSC, by segmenting and differentiating deposit-taking institutions from those which were managing investments, etc., you provided a greater concentration of effort on a specific problem. One of the things which I don't I've not studied it long enough, but I don't know if it's a good idea, is to give all of this, put all of this under one institution, like the Bank of Jamaica. Because if there's a problem with FSC, that's not necessarily the best solution.
One of the things the GLP criticized the then administration is that economies around the world then were growing at 4 and 5%, while Jamaica was only growing 1% and 2%. Was that true?
Well, let us not pursue the argument. Like, what is different now?
Because
what is different? What is different now in terms of growth?
Well, no, we're growing now by 0.8%.
Yeah, but that's what's different. The other thing is, when they speak about this high interest rates, there are similar financial sector challenges in countries with low interest. In Japan and in Europe, there are similar situations. So if people are crooked, and out to do harm, they will do it regardless of the situation. I'm not defending the sustained interest rates, but I'm just telling you that to try to blame the 2 points. One is that there are instances of similar situations in low interest rate economies. And secondly, and I urge people to do this because the credit unions have made that point to me repeatedly. How come we didn't have any of those problems? And one of the reasons is that the decision making and the supervision of like the credit union movement is democratic in that the annual general meeting, people actually take part in it and have a say. That's not so with the private institutions, in particular those which had executive chairman.
Dr. Davies,
I soon have to go though.
Yeah, man, I'm wrapping up now. But when we talk about the 90s, one of the great things that I think happened, and I don't hear people giving you any credit for it, are the most honorable Pj-Patterson, the fact that we left the IMF. How significant was that?
Well, it was significant for several reasons. It showed that we could design our own program. And you are asking about what happened in terms of the economy prior to my departure. In that we demonstrated that it was possible to achieve objectives jointly agreed with the IMF without seeking to borrow from them. It was a very significant achievement at that stage. Unfortunately, the momentum which we had generated was not maintained, and very soon we had to return to the IMF.
Was that a mistake returning? Was it a mistake returning to the IMF?
Well, that was a result of what had happened. But unless you would have to take on these to change or continue the tight management which we had instituted, which allowed us to leave.
Finally, Dr. Davies, when the GLP-1 in 2007, we knew then that Ardlishaw was going to take us back to the IMF. They did, and the economy went into a tailspin crash. Nobody really speaks about that era either. They don't speak about the Portiasimpsonmiller era, and they don't speak about the Bruce Golding era. But going forward, Dr. Davies, as a former finance minister, what advice would you want to give to this finance minister and any future finance minister coming, how to really carry on the Jamaican economy for betterment for the people?
Well, I don't know who is the present finance minister. So I won't then offer advice to an unknown.
Or to whoever coming, because it is for Jamaica, not really for the finance minister.
Well, there are clear guidelines. It's not. It's tough, but it's not rocket science.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some agreement which you of what are the steps which need to be taken.
Yes.
One critical point I'll make though is that we have the corruption can be a major factor which damages anything, and the extent to which the economy is dominated by corrupt practices, that then undermines confidence in an economy.
I did say finally, but finally, you seeing Bolt and that money that he has lost in SSL.
The truth is, I don't know anything.
Man, I don't want to ask you about SSL. I'm just asking you about the impact that it would have on Jamaica's reputation, that a global name has lost his money and it has not been returned. You think that will have any...
A very short answer. It obviously can't do us any good. Because you don't have to have the amounts which you saying had. It can't do us any good.
So, like FINSAC, do you believe that the country should find a way to return these people money?
No,
like you did back in your time.
When I'm Minister of Finance, I deal with those things. And I don't want that is not something I'm going to offer an opinion on.
Dr. Omar Davies, former Minister of Finance, in my opinion, the best finance minister Jamaica has ever seen. Is there anything you want to say to my listeners and viewers before you go?
Well, I've been heartened by the response. It's really tragic that what came out of the Commission of Inquiry obviously demonstrates that either there was a report which has been withheld, or that they didn't find. If that found any if there are any adverse findings, it would have been lauded about.
And unlike you trying to protect them, if there was something to make you look bad, they would have dashed it out.
That's one thing you know. That's one thing you know.
And I still ask, why are you protecting these people, Dr. Davies?
That's for another discussion.
My brother, my comrade, I thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and may the good Lord continue to bless and keep you and make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Thanks for your service, Dr. Davies.
Thank you too.
Blessings.